I am Dr. Smith. I am the superintendent of Ohio High Point Career Center, the career center that does serve you. And I am here representing the Hardin County Chamber and the Business Advisory Council that is putting on this speaker series for all the eighth graders in the county this year. We want you to start thinking about what it is to be either enrolling in school when you get out of your high school education, maybe going and enlisting into one of the military branches, or doing employment possibly right here in your local area. And we have two great employers with us today. We have Graphic Packaging here with us. We have Alyssa Jones on the end. She is the HR coordinator. That's the human resource coordinator. She helps do hiring in the company. We have Kevin Jameson, who is here. He is a process engineer. And then we have Triumph Thermal with us as well. We have Jeff Elwood. He's a tool and die maker. I can tell you for a fact, that's a trade people need. Tool and die makers, not saying anything that Jeff's getting old, but they're getting very old in the field.
I am getting
And so I know a lot of companies that I talk to are looking for tool and die makers. And we also have with us Patrick Simpson here today. He is the Business Development Project Manager, correct? I got everybody right? So we're gonna ask questions here that we hope that will engage you and engage those who are online. And so Ohio Means Jobs is here even for the future. They'll be sharing things with you in the future, enroll, enlist, and employ. But we're going to get right to the questions, and then I'm going to ask you to ask questions. As you saw when you came in the room, this owl will follow wherever the note is at. And so when people start talking, the camera will move. So when I get to you and ask a question, I'm going to ask you to stand up and speak loudly so the owl can kind of recognize where you're at and get your question online for all the other schools in the county to see. So we'll start with all of you, and we'll start right here with Graphic Packaging on the end. Is just kind of tell us about your organization and what it does and kind of how it might be important to society as a whole.
Yeah. So we represent packaging. So a little bit about packaging. If you don't know, we used to be International Paper. 2018, we became Graphic Packaging. So if you've heard International Paper, that's us. We employ about 700 employees, largest employer in Hardin County. So I know you may know someone, family member, neighbor, someone that actually works at Graphic Packaging. What we do is we make paper cups. So we make 1 million cups a day. And if you can visualize that, it's just a lot of cups constantly flying back and forth in tubes on our factory floor. So it kind of looks like, we call it like hamster tubes, and you just see cups constantly flying from the cup machine to where they're bagged. So we also need some plastic lids to go with the paper cups. Kind of everything from taking paper to kind of
everywhere. You see these things every place you go. Graphic Packaging is one of the largest suppliers of those types of cups. So thank you very much. We will go to Triumph Thermal and let them introduce themselves as well.
Same question?
Same question. What's your organization do and how's it important to society as a whole?
Like I said, I'm Jeff Elwood. I've been with Triumph for 22 years, tool and die. We primarily make, if you go out and look at your mom and dad's cars, radiators. We primarily make a radiator for aircraft, but it can be in a tubular form. It can be in a square box form. It can be commercial. It can be military. We're about what, Patrick, 60% military. We do everything from fighter jets to bombers, cargo aircraft, and anything in between. Trainers, if you're going to go in and be a pilot in the military, most of the trainer planes that you're going to fly on have one of our, what they call OBOGs units on, and that separates out some oxygen out of the nitrogen, pumps it back into the cockpit. So just different things like that is primarily what we make.
Okay. I just found out, I worked on the C-17 when I was in the Air Force, and they make a part for the C-17. And so maybe you don't necessarily want to go into the military, but you want to serve your country. look for businesses that also have a relationship with the military is another great way for you to consider giving back. Okay. Anybody else want to add anything to that opening question? Do I have a question from the audience yet? Does anybody have a question they would like to ask? Because I've got 7 more, so if you're not ready yet, but I'll come back to you. Okay, well, let's go on. This is a question for kind of both companies. Let you answer this. What makes your company unique and a great place to work? And we'll start with Triumph this time.
So I can answer that. We are roughly one of about 10 companies worldwide that do what we do, right? We support both the commercial side. I'm sure either most of you or some of you or your parents have flown commercially at one point or another, or military, as Jeff was alluding to. We have product that is on the military, both fixed wing and rotorcraft platforms. Our portfolio is huge, but we in Forest, Ohio, little small Forest, Ohio, support the world in some instances with the product that we provide.
Okay, for graphic packaging, one is going to be the career path. So many of our leaderships, including management, have came in entry-level positions their way up. And as Kevin had mentioned earlier, we are one of the largest employers in Hardin County, but we also have one of the highest entry pay. So if you start, you're going to come with us and have one of the highest paying positions that you can have starting out.
Okay. Matt, I just saw you got on. Are you with the school here today? Do you have another school with you?
Yes, we're here. I'm just trying to get my system to work properly.
Well, Matt, we're going to continue on with questions, and then we'll come back, and if your school has a question, we'll let them join in and ask it, okay?
Sounds good.
Great. So this is for all of you. I'd like each one of you to answer this question and kind of talk about like your job and also what are different jobs within your company that have different pathways. So how maybe you even got to where you're at today, the pathway you traveled versus, you know, maybe other pathways that work around you and work with you on a daily basis, those type of things. Kind of describe some of the jobs and pathways that are within your company. And we'll start with graphic on this time. I think we'll go the other way. Graphic.
Yeah, I kind of start. So for me specifically, I kind of always knew early on I wanted to be an engineer. So I always loved taking things apart and seeing how they worked. Thought I might try to make some money with it. So, you know, went to college for an engineering degree. Actually went to Ohio Northern, just down the road, and ended up at graphic packaging. And what I get to do on a daily basis is kind of look at different machines, take them apart. So I went from like, you know, taking apart little toys and now taking apart giant machines, but kind of the same thing, going through the problem solving process, trying to understand what's wrong with it. I get to design different components, so seeing how I can make things better. And really it's kind of like playing with giant equipment. So that's what I get to do. And you know, I went the route of going to college, and then getting a job after college. But a lot, as Alicia mentioned, a lot of our positions that are in a similar vein are starting out on our floor, learning the process, learning on the fly, trying to improve the machines themselves, and then eventually getting into those maintenance positions and then leadership positions. And so there's kind of two ways that you can kind of get to the same position, at least that I'm in, or, you know, you can take it to management if you want to go the HR route, accounting. There's all these different ways that you can go, you know, and have kind of an entry, mid to high level job, all just based on, you know, trying to learn what you're doing, trying to learn the job, being aware, always looking for opportunities to grow. And you can get, you know, anywhere, like I said, from staying at an entry to getting a mid-level job to having management, leadership. So that's what's kind of nice about graphics specifically, and about just my experience in the workforce.
So mine's a little bit different than Kevin. I actually started when it was international paper. I started in an entry-level position. I came in as a cut packer, then went into a blanking operator. Oddly enough, Kevin was my supervisor at one point. I had left there. I went to college, got into human resources, and brought me back to graphic packaging. So currently in my role, as it was mentioned, I do a lot of the hiring. I work with our employees internally to do what we call as bids, so they can move throughout the facility in different positions, and that's kind of how they're moving into some of those leadership roles and just other avenues within the facility. But as Kevin had mentioned, I mean, you can really kind of go, it depends on your career path and what you're looking for, right? So you can start in an entry-level position. Typically is going to be a packer position, then most likely you're going to go into an operating role unless you're looking for a forklift, or you could even get into maintenance or engineering. But typically the route is a packer and then an operator. And from there, oftentimes people are looking at trying to go into maintenance or building up their career from there, going into group leader roles or supervisor roles, and then management. That's happened a lot with a lot of our senior management currently. I think for the most part, all of them have started in entry-level positions. And like I said, I mean, it just depends on kind of the avenue that you're looking for, but there's many different placements that you guys could go into.
My path, I grew up in Forest, Ohio, lived there almost all my life. Grew up small community just like this, basically hands-on my whole life. Dad was a hands-on guy. He would fix everything. So I kind of went that way. When I graduated way back in 1984, college just wasn't a real option back then. Nobody really in our area kind of thought about it. So what I did is I continued on. I went into a factory. I would work my way up from entry-level positions, whether it was an operator, all the way up through group leaders, maintenance, that type of stuff. Kind of went full circle. I came back to Forest. I had moved away for a while, worked my way up through management, but decided once I got into management and did some engineering work, that I decided I wanted to come back and get back out on the floor and do some work out there. So I hired at Triumph 22 years ago. Started in as a tester, and that allowed me the opportunity to take parts, hook them up. I'd run fluid through them, fuel through them, do all kinds of different things. Worked my way through maintenance and everything, and now I'm a tool and die maker. Our company offers, a lot of options like that, just like graphic. And I know a lot of other manufacturers around here do the same thing. Get yourself in. You can work your way up. You can go as high as you want to go, whatever you want to do. But as eighth graders, start looking, toward high school. What do you want to do in high school? What type of classes do you want to take? Do you want to take your industrial arts? I guess I'm not sure nowadays kind of what they call some of these classes, your shop classes and things like that. If that's your type of stuff, go dabble in it, see if that's kind of the way you want to go. You got your whole lives ahead of you. Don't make too much out of it. It's all going to be good. Okay.
So, Mr. Owen, I'm going to ask this follow up here on you. Does anybody know what a tool and die maker is? Anybody? Can you better explain kind of what tool and die? Because you kind of form things from the machines, right? That, if I understand it correctly.
Yeah. What we do. I'm not only a tool and die maker. I'm also an FAA certified technician. And the FAA is, over all the aircraft, in the United States. They control everything. And what we do and what my main job is when units come back in after so many hours out in the field, let's say just like your car, you're going to change oil every 5,000 miles, 3,000 miles. Once an aircraft's been in service for so many hours, certain parts have to come back to us and be reevaluated and rechecked. So we bring those back in, we check those, and we recertify them. But on the tool and die end, basically what we do is, if I wanted to take this block of aluminum and we needed a test fixture that we're going to hook this part up to, and we may go all the way up to 3,000 PSI of air pressure on this unit. we're gonna make this block to where we can put the unit into it to be able to test it. So that's basically what a tool and die maker does. You're going to take square block of anything, steel, and you're gonna run, whether it be a Bridgeport mill, a Haas 3-axis machine, to where you're gonna make this part. So it's very interesting. I enjoy my job. I'm getting toward the end of my career, but it's been a fun ride, and I've got to see a lot of stuff, meet a lot of people, and that's what factories do. Colleges are awesome, but factories, have so many opportunities, and the rate of pay is unreal anymore. I mean, I have seen maintenance jobs going for, upwards of $30 an hour. So it's good money.
Simon, talk about your.
Yeah, so my route's kind of like Kevin's. Started out, in my early years, 8th grade, high school, where I always knew I wanted to do business, some type of business involvement, right? So I ended up going to college, went to Ohio Northern University, graduated from there in 2004. From there, I went on to Procter & Gamble. That place makes soap, right? So laundry soap, dish soap, whatnot. Spent a couple months there. I didn't really care for the industry, didn't really like it. I ended up taking another position as a supervisor in General Dynamics in Lima. And there, military, the defense oriented company, they make the Abrams tanks. I'm sure you guys have seen that on Call of Duty or some kind of, some of the video games you guys play today. But the Abrams tanks. So it really intrigued me, being a part of the military defense type industries, right? Spent a year and a half there or so, and I interviewed over at Triumph over here in Forest as a supervisor. Took the job in 2007, and I've been with Triumph ever since. Worked my way up through the company, right? So there's those entry-level jobs. You can work your way up depending on how hard you work, how dedicated you are to your craft. You can work your way up as far as you truly want to go. Started as a supervisor, about 3 years there at the plant. Ended up supervising every department in some fashion or another during my time as supervisor. Went into contracts, program management, eventually into the operations. So I ran the plant for quite a while. And shortly after that, I ended up having to take over engineering, business development. I was still the operations and then into the GM role. I spent about 7 months in the GM role and just stepped down about 2 months ago, I think it was. And now I'm back into the business development program.
So the GM role will be the general manager, kind of, right?
That is correct.
Overseeing everything. So we in business, whether it's education or other, we have a lot of acronyms and little sayings for different types of things, but we want you to understand, he was kind of the general manager over the whole plant, kind of like I'm the superintendent, or like Mr. Hurley here's the superintendent over all the school and all the operations that go in to the school. Has anyone here thought of a question they would like to ask Harpino about? Somebody has to have a question. One question. Who will be first? Any other? Okay. Well, I'm going to ask them another question, but I just want you to start thinking, like, if you're one of those type of people who grew up younger and you like playing with Play-Doh and Legos and building things, and now you're kind of into videos and computers and programming, that's a lot of what manufacturing does. If Play-Doh is kind of like building that tool and die, figuring out how you want to design it, how you want to make it, and then how you can take those Legos into all different types of ideas, make them stronger, make it more sturdy, make it not fall over. And that's what they kind of do in engineering, problem solving, using their hands, using their brains to be innovative and think of something maybe no one else in the field has thought of yet to solve a problem for society. Okay. So my next question for you guys is, and either company both companies can answer it, but kind of one of you maybe is your company involved in any social causes? How do you give back to your community? So we'll start this time with Triumph. I think we started last time with Graphic Patch. So Triumph.
Yeah, we're just finishing up. We're part of the Riverdale Ministerial Association. And what that is as a company, we'll bring donations in. We put them out on our tables at work in our break areas, and we all go and bid on these. And what we do is we try and raise money to give back to the community, to help families out that may be in need. Maybe you just had a fire, something other catastrophic, and you need some help. we try and, build up a fund where we can go back out within the community and help around Forest or the Riverdale area. That's one of the main things we do.
Graphic packaging, we work most recently with United Way. So that organization helps various different nonprofits throughout Hardin County. So the homeless shelter, Helping Hands, and then just various other nonprofits. In addition, we also did what is called like Adopting Angels for Christmas. That was through Helping Hands. So the employers at GPI would pick families or children, and then we would go out, purchase Christmas gifts for them and give them to them as well. For the United Way, just some different things that we were doing to raise money. We did a chili day, so the employees could come in, purchase a bowl of chili. We had cookies, we had raffle tickets. We also do shirt sales throughout the entire year so that the employees can purchase shirts, kind of like I have on today. And then all of those funds are gonna go to the United Way as well, so that they can break them out throughout the organizations that they need.
And one thing I'll add as far as from a social cause, so let's see, show of hands. So who thinks that a styrofoam cup is better for the environment? And how many people think paper cup? So how many people think styrofoam cup is good for the environment? Okay, yeah. Oh, one hand, two hands.
Three,
Okay,
four.
who thinks paper cups are better for the environment? Yeah, exactly. So, one thing that we kind of pride ourselves on as a company as a whole is we're a more sustainable solution for food service than styrofoam and then plastics. Those tend to be, worse for the environment. And the nice thing about paper is it comes from Mother Nature. So the good thing about that is you can always plant more trees. You can, make sure that you're giving back to Mother Nature more than you're taking. And so we, as a company, are part of the sustainable forest industry. So we make sure, there's a lot of standards, there's a lot of things we have to follow as a company to make sure that we are being better to the environment than, than the harm we're causing. So from a social standpoint, that's kind of one of our biggest drivers in terms of social causes and how we're helping.
And we do a lot of recycling and volunteer work as well. And we work a lot of metal, right? So recycling is a big portion of what we do, all the scrap, all the extra stuff we do. We will save that and we will allow somebody to come in, take it, scrap it, and keep the money for themselves. A lot of volunteering work as well. We pride ourselves in that.
So many of the companies you'll find in Hardin County find great ways to give back to their communities. And so when you're maybe doing a future research paper or something of that nature for one of your classes, you should look at those companies that you live right around. Mr. Steamer, what school are you with, and do you guys have a question yet?
We are at Ridgemont Schools. Are there any here? No questions from us as of right now.
We thank Ridgemont for joining us today. Thank you very much for being here. Well, the next question we kind of have on the list is targeted to you eighth graders who are now thinking about kind of going into high school. And maybe it was talked about a little bit, but I'll let anyone on the panel answer for your company on this question is, what type of courses should you eighth graders be considering for high school that might best align to some of the careers and pathways in your businesses? And we'll start, I think it's this time. Who's up next? I don't remember.
I think it's us.
I think it's okay.
Yeah, so, speaking from an engineering perspective, and this kind of goes for manufacturing in general, is definitely like a lot of the STEM classes. So science, technology, engineering, mathematics, anything like that that's really getting that, the logical, kind of thinking through things logically, using math, using kind of objective data. All of that is going to help you in manufacturing. But beyond that, the trade schools are really going to be beneficial as well. It's encouraging the same type of thinking. So how do I take, a piece of metal and turn it into something that can be used on a machine? How can something that starts at this become this? And that's essentially what we're doing in manufacturing, is we're taking raw materials and turning it into a finished product. So just having that thought process and learning that thought process is going to help. And then really just anything in like programming, anything in the engineering related fields, you know, you may not end up being an engineer, but having that understanding, having that baseline allows you to kind of, again, further understand how the machines are working, further understand just how all of that, how that comes together. So.
And even some of your just very basic computer classes that you guys would just take, some of them are elections when it comes to high school, just electing in those to have, because even our entry-level positions, up to the operator level, you're gonna be dealing with some sort of computer, doing some data input, printing labels, using a scanner, just various different components. And as we had mentioned, the trade school. So if you are looking maybe a career path in maintenance, maybe your dad or your family has come from maintenance, that's going to be a good route that you can take from that trade school and take it into the facility, and even likely graduate high school straight into a maintenance role that is one of the highest paying positions at GPI.
Yeah, I think the vocational schools are very important process to your growth, right? I was never good in math growing up. In high school, I really struggled with math. When I got to college, finance was something that really intrigued me, and I actually did very well in the finance world. But looking back, going the vocational route wasn't necessarily something that I couldn't have done, right? Welding, mechanical, tool and die, as Jeff here is, so.
Mr. Simon brings up a great point. You know, some of you might already be in algebra 1, that type of stuff. And then, you know, probably said algebra 1 wasn't the best math or that type of math, but finance math is also different. So don't think just because in one math area or one English area or something that maybe you're not good at that, but actually kind of explore what type of jobs that you really think you would enjoy doing. And when you enjoy it more, you kind of find out that you can overcome some of those deficits type thing. I'm not a very good writer. I'm not a very good person who with English language or writing stuff of those natures, but I actually had to write a lot of papers to get my dissertation and get a doctorate. So not a skill set that I really enjoy, but you know, don't let it hold you back from what your dreams or your goals might be. Okay. So the next question would be, for any of you to answer, would be kind of, what is your base pay, kind of maximum pay? What are some of the kind of the benefits if they were start looking at these jobs down the road? And do you take people at 16, 17? Do you have to be 18 to work for your company? When could they start looking at your kind of field as potential pathways?
Okay, yeah, so we'll start. So our entry level positions typically start off at $16.50. That's going to be in a Packer role. You have potential to go up to $17.50, even some room for an $18.50 you could train or become a lead. Sometimes you could even come in even at 18. You do have to be 18 to work at our facility. But into an operator role, especially if you come from like a trade school and have a little bit more of a mechanical background or just a little bit more mechanically inclined, those positions go up to $21.35. Or if you did go to a trade school, you went some more of the maintenance route and you guys got hired in as an entry maintenance, that's going to start off at $22.50. So the money's there. It's good paying positions. But even as 18-year-olds, if you decide that you want to go to college, we work with an agency, it's called My Work Choice. It provides a super flexible schedule. So the employees are actually able to pick up and drop shifts as they need. They can do them in 6-hour increments versus 12 hours, which is our standard shifts. So for those of you who may go the college route, if you guys are looking for super part-time, something super flexible, you can do that. If you're looking for something simply on college break, you can do that as well. We also have taken people on summer break or like winter breaks just to come part-time. Just let us know you're only going to come for a short amount of time, and then we'll end you and then bring you back if that's what you decide after college.
So we, you know, the many different departments we have, we're a unionized shop, right? So there's specific departments that have specific wages associated with them. Some of our entry level, earlier based paid type departments start out $18, $19 an hour, and they run up to about $23, $24 an hour. Those being material packaging, material moving, assembly, assembling of a part, assembling, you know, paint, test, leak test type, because you got to pressurize these, the parts that we have. Anywhere from 18 to about $23, $24 an hour. Now, if you go to a vocational school, you can take some of that experience and start out at a higher pay in our facility. We do have, again, tool and die, welders, machinists. Those start out $22, $23 an hour, and they max out roughly $27, $28, $29 an hour. And every contract, every couple of years, that pay increases just a little bit based on the negotiations.
So is there any questions left, either online or in the room? It's my last chance, the last time I'm going to ask you, because we're down to our last question. Any questions out there that come to mind so far? No one wants to be.
Have one here.
Okay.
When it comes to any of the locations, any of the jobs, are there particular softwares that you would recommend getting trainings in before starting the job, either through trade school or through classes of your own? Any particular software skills that need to be specifically obtained?
Sorry, I'll take a stab at this one. So a definite is all of your Microsoft Office, so your Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and just kind of having a good understanding of how to, maybe type an email or, type, good grammar, sentences, professional grammar. Anything like that is going to be any job it will apply. And then for me specifically for engineering, AutoCAD and Inventor or SolidWorks, any kind of 3D or 2D drafting is going to come in handy. That's pretty much universal across the board. So as far as software, those are the main ones. But the Microsoft is, no matter where you go, no matter what you do, have a really firm understanding of that, and that'll take you far.
Yeah, I would echo that. Microsoft, it's a segue to, a lot of the other programs. CATIA as well, SolidWorks is something we use quite a bit at Traff as well.
Okay. Last question for you. That's a great question, Ridgemont. Thank you very much. I'll add that to my list for future programming. How many positions do you guys generally need to fill on a regular basis? And start with Triumph. Go ahead.
So Triumph, our turnover is relatively low. A lot of the people that come to us, we end up retiring at some point. And it's a great place to work. Hourly positions, 2 to 5 in a given year. We are growing and we are expecting some pretty large growth. So I do expect those open positions, in the next 5 to 10 years to grow on the hourly side. Salary side, engineering, quality, procurement groups, anywhere between 5 and 10. Turnover is a little bit higher. A lot of people like to come to us to get some experience, then segue off to the Boeings, the General Electrics, the Sikorsky's, the Pratt & Whitney's, the Collins. So the turnover is a little bit larger in the in the salary side.
Okay.
For GPI, so on an average between about 5 to 15, just depending. We do have a little bit more turnover in those entry-level positions. We also have staffing agencies, so people who are going to be on like short-term assignments or somebody who's just trying to come in, get their foot in the door, get established, and get hired in full-time. With some of the internal moves that I had made mentioned earlier, that opens up a lot of those entry-level positions again. Because people are coming in, they're moving internally various routes, or they could be promoting up or just changing. If they were in the cups department, they want to go into warehouse or distribution. So that, again, that's going to open up those cups. So it's ever changing every week, I would say.
Well, if you guys would just thank the panel for me for being here today. Well, we want you to understand, what we want you to really know from this whole series is we understand you're only in 8th grade, but you're starting to enter into that high school realm just next year, and those 4 years are going to go fast. And what we know is some of you right now are starting to think about what that future might be. Some of you are already starting to think about, hey, I want to go on a college pathway. I want to enroll after high school, and this is what I want to go to college to be. Some of you don't know what you necessarily want to be. And so you're maybe thinking about, hey, is military the right option for me? Is employment the right option for me? I appreciate the panel. I did not pay them to talk about trade schools and career centers, but I appreciate their input in that. But that's also some of the types of things that you're going to be looking at as you come visit us as eighth graders or come do your sophomore visit, is whether Ohio High Point might be someplace you want to think about. And those type of ideas might lead to some of these other types of jobs. We have internships and placements for you in high school with many companies in our area. And so as you start thinking about what you want to do next in life, be considering whether it's going to be to enroll, to enlist, or to be employed. But what I can tell you most importantly is your country needs you in all three of those areas. They need you. These people need you to think about wanting to work and give back to society in some way, whether it's here locally or someplace just a county away or something of that nature. I know that your country needs you to be thinking about what your future is going to be so it can stay strong, both as a local region, as a state, and as a nation. And so we hope these speaker series will at least start lighting a little fire, a spark inside you to be thinking in terms of those things. Thank you once again for coming. We appreciate it. I'll turn it back over to your teacher or whoever will direct you next.